You're listening to
and such a short amount of time to do it in. We were really
a Mamma Mia podcast.
This episode of Lady Startup is brought to you by GoDaddy, the place to go to get your business idea online.
Hello and welcome to Lady Startup Stories, a Mamma Mia podcast about how female entrepreneurs built their businesses, big or small. Lady Startup Stories is part of the Lady Startup movement that helps women launch and grow their own businesses. If it was founded or co-founded by a woman, it's a lady startup. My name is Georgia Love, and last year I became one of the many women who joined the ranks of lady startups across the country. And now I've got some questions.
Hi, I'm Christiana Heidemann and this is my Lady Startup story.
What happens when Madonna shares a photo of one of your products on Instagram? Like the Madonna? Well, Christiana Heidemann can tell you. Her business Damselfly, which predominantly made quote candles, was already ticking along successfully for years when the one and only shared one of her designs and it blew up. But it wasn't just a matter of everything selling out in seconds and the following expanding tenfold overnight, because business takes more work than that. And as Christiana's own mum told her, not everyone's going to like your product, even if Madonna does. Damselfly is risque, it's fun, it's cool, and it knows how to reinvent itself, quite like Madge herself. Because in the brand's almost 20 years, it's gone from jewellery to candles to astrology and even wine. So how has Christiana managed to create a chameleon business? And how the hell did she start a business at the age of 19? Christiana, thank you so much for joining me today. As you know, I absolutely adore Damselfly, so I'm so excited to hear all about how this business came to be.
Oh, thank you, Georgia. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
So I want to take you right back. Before Damselfly was a twinkle in your eye, what was your childhood like? What did you want to be when you were growing up? How did that young Christiana shape who she is today?
Well, look, I mean, I've always had quite an entrepreneurial flair for things. I mean, my mum's told me that from a very young age, I was always trying to sort of hustle people and create products, and family and friends would come over for dinner and I'd pop out after dinner and try and sell them something or put on a show or, create some sort of product. And yeah, that started quite young. My first real business as a young girl was when I made these friendship bracelets. I've always been into jewellery and crafts and things like that. And I talked this family friend into putting a little basket of friendship bracelets in her boutique at the front. And then I'd come back each week and check, have you sold any? How's it going? And that was my real first taste for the business world.
So it started, I suppose, with the friendship bracelets. How did it kind of take off from there?
I mean, that was about 12. So there was a bit of time in between when I launched Damselfly, which was 19, just out of high school. I spent most of my high school years doing a lot of art-based subjects, fine art, sculpture, photography. I studied silversmithing. I was really into jewellery and stones, and that just kind of got me to the point where I wanted to start my own business. I guess it's hard to sort of summarise it in a few sentences because a lot happened. Well, look, I got into fine arts because I thought I wanted to be an artist, and I deferred after about a month and a half.
Why did you defer?
I don't know. It just didn't feel like it was for me. Like I love painting and I love creating, but the thought of being in school for another, 5 or 6 years or however long it was going to be after I'd just come out of high school, I just wanted to get out there and do something. I wanted to really get stuck into it. Again, I didn't know what that meant, but it didn't feel right for me. I didn't want to be studying. I wanted to be doing. Yeah, so I went to India and I'd already had a really strong interest in jewellery and stones, and I spent quite a bit of time in places like Udaipur and Rajasthan, where there's just amazing traditional jewellery and silver and goldsmiths. And, I was really inspired and super excited about, creating something myself, and thought, okay, I'm going to start a jewellery business.
Wow. So you're just inspired basically by what you saw in India?
Yeah, I mean, the traditional ways of jewellery making, really blew my mind, because the way that I'd been taught in Australia, with professional jewellers' tools and seeing these silversmiths and goldsmiths hunched over a fire with a foot sort of pedalled welder and, doing things in such a sort of simple way, but creating these beautiful pieces of art.
Tell me about Damselfly. Tell me about the name.
I mean, I've always been sort of interested in entomology and gems and fairies and mermaids and insects. So that's where the Damselfly name came from.
Okay, so tell me about this first collection. What was it? How did you do it? And what did you do with it?
Well, the first collection, I mean, it was really basic. As I said, I was 19 years old. The only experience that I'd had prior to this was high school. Looking back at it now, the way that I put together the first collection and came up with the name and the business cards and so on, it was like I was creating a school project, basically. Like I created these, 20 pieces of jewellery, photographed them with the sort of camera that you take into the pharmacy and you get the photos printed out. Then, I stuck them with double-sided tape into a photo album, wrote on the top of each style the name of it and the price. At that point, I didn't quite understand wholesale and retail price, so I just wrote what I thought it should cost in the shop, not fully understanding how that works. I made some business cards. I literally drew them up on my computer, printed them out, cut them up, noted my name as the CEO of Damselfly.
You just chose that title?
Just chose that. I thought that was fitting. I'm a business owner now, so let's go with CEO. Obviously not understanding that it wasn't a company that was trading and it was but like Christiana Heidemann, CEO, Damselfly. Looking back, if I going to these buying meetings, and these buyers must have just thought, like, they would have been chuckling to themselves, this young girl with CEO written on her business cards, clearly handmade business cards. Anyway, same thing with the swing tags. I cut them all out and I strung them all onto the jewellery. And I literally went through magazines at the time and highlighted all of my favourite boutiques and found the head office numbers and called them one by one and was like, "Hi, I'm Christiana from Damselfly, the CEO. Love to show you my new collection. Are you interested?" And, I had probably about 95% of people just hanging up on me or saying, yeah, call back later, or just trying to sort of get me off the phone. And I happened to get through to the buyer at Alana Hill. And Alana Hill, they were massive at the time. And she was like, "Yeah, come in." And so I was like, oh my God, couldn't quite believe that, someone had basically spoken to me and were interested for me to come and show my range. So that was kind of where things started to become a real business, I guess. But I mean, going back to that first meeting, so I went in, I had a suitcase full of my jewellery and these feathered brooches. Yeah, I sat down with the buyer and I just showed her the collection, and she happened to love these brooches, and it was around the time of Spring Racing Carnival, which I was really not aware of. She was like, "Oh, these are great for spring, summer." And yeah, it was just lucky that I'd made brooches. Yeah, she placed an order about a week later, and yeah, I was super busy making hundreds of feathered pearl brooches on the floor of my bedroom.
So you'd made one of these for a lookbook, and then a buyer from Alana Hill says, "Yes, please, we'd like to order." How many? How much? And what was the dollar worth?
It was about a $20,000 order, which was just insane. And also the samples that I'd made, I didn't really think past making the samples at that point. So I didn't have stock available of each style. I had to go and source all of the components from suppliers around Melbourne, trying to find the same sort of feathers and beads. And yeah, so basically as each thing came up, I dealt with it. So the first thing was, I'm going to make a range and I'm going to take it in and I'm going to try and sell it. And then I was like, okay, now I need to find hundreds of this particular feather. And, it was very grassroots and I was learning on the job every step of the way. Yeah, so I just spent the next couple of weeks making this order and put them all in little Ziploc bags. Everything was handmade. I wrote with texta on the top of each bag the name and the SKU. They received it and it sold really well and they reordered.
So then were you selling online as well, or was it just through retailers?
No, online really wasn't a thing at that point in the early years. I think it was about 6 years in that I sort of set up an online site, but that was it wasn't really a main avenue for us to sell. It was really just check out my website so you can have a look at what we do. We didn't really make a lot of sales through the online store at that point.
All right, and where did you go from there? Because I know Damselfly now to be candles and wine and body oils. So when did that pivot happen from jewellery?
So I guess the first 10-ish years was really jewellery and accessories. So we started with women's jewellery, moved into bridal jewellery, moved into men's jewellery, and then dabbled with a bit of apparel, tie-dye, jumpsuits and bags and things, which is a bit random. And then I had a bit of a break.
Why is that?
It was for health reasons, firstly. And I'd also been going pretty hard since the age of 19, pretty much working nonstop, which was great because I'm passionate about what I do and I loved it. But you really do need to take time to look after yourself. And working nonstop and running on adrenaline and coffees and Red Bull and, just go, go, go. At some point, you're going to crash like you have to and it catches up to you. It actually turned out that I had quite severe endometriosis that I was ignoring literally for 10 years. So I mean, to be that focused on your work and, your passion, to be able to push something like that aside, you have to deal with it at some point. Yeah, so I did take some time off and reset and came back to Damselfly a couple of years later.
What happened to Damselfly while you were taking the back seat?
It just sort of paused. So I didn't sell the business. I didn't go into liquid. I just kind of closed the doors and said, I need to have a rest, please.
So is it just you working on Damselfly at that time?
No, it wasn't. So we had a team of people, and it also coincided with a business partnership that didn't go well. So I kind of removed myself from that, and that was quite challenging as well, which was also part of the catalyst to the, what's the word? Not breakdown.
Pause.
And then some of the people that were on the team, when I picked back up again, they came back. We did have some people that were part-time that had other jobs. So it was mainly just obviously the full-time people that it was harder for. But I, had really great communication with everybody, and they knew about this well before it happened. I didn't just walk in and say, okay, hey guys, I need a holiday. They were aware that, there were some things going on with my health, and, we worked through that. Just at the point where I was gearing up for this pause, I was actually offered 3 roles, like within a 2-week period, as design manager for 3 big retailers. I thought that was a sign. I had planned to take time off and actually rest and recuperate and work out what I was doing. I hadn't planned to work anywhere else. I hadn't planned to start another business. But then when I was offered these roles, I thought, okay, maybe I should give it a crack. And I'd never actually considered working for anyone else because from the age of 19, I'd run my own business. So after dealing with my health, I, had some operations and had to recover and went on a bit of a holiday. Yeah, I came back and I took one of these roles as design manager. It was a great experience, and it really opened my eyes to large-scale production, and I was traveling a lot. And yeah, it was an amazing experience, but it wasn't right for me long-term. I think it's just in my blood to be a business owner. And so after about a year, I left and thought, I think it's time to reboot Damselfly.
Okay, so how did that start?
I guess candles were a way for me to start experimenting with fragrance, like in the form of a commercial and accessible product, and I saw that at that point in time there was a gap in the market for quote candles. Literally at that point there was nothing on the market. Quotes were having a really big moment. Candles have always been having a big moment, but I thought merging these two together could be interesting. I didn't have plans for it to be a major part of the business. It was just 3 styles on the website in addition to the jewellery. Sorry, 6. Yeah, it was 6 styles. But yeah, we just had such a fantastic response. Yeah, kind of steamrolled from there.
How did you even get into that? So you said you liked it. That's where the idea came from. But how did you start that? You've been a jewellery business and you just one day go, actually, let's do candles.
Well, as I said, I wasn't planning to flip from jewellery to candles and for the candles to take over. The intention was that it was just going to be a little addition. But I approached it in the same way that I did with the jewellery. Like I Googled how to make soy candles on the internet. At that stage, the internet existed. So I Googled how to make soy candles, and I just spent time researching online, looking up suppliers, watching tutorials, speaking to anyone I knew that had any sort of experience in that area. Taught myself how to make candles, how to mix fragrances, and created the first collection. Literally my house, just looked like an ice lab for about, 6 months.
It was around the Breaking Bad era as well.
I think so, actually. So I was like, like I had these huge drums of fragrances up the hallway. Like I was living in like a little sort of terrace house in inner city Melbourne. It wasn't a huge space, and that's where I was running the candle lab from. Big bags of soy wax and, all these thermometers and beakers and things through the kitchen, and the paint was kind of pulling away from the walls. Like it was literally looking like an ice lab, and it was a rental. So I don't know how I thought I could get away with that. Well, when I get into something, I get really into it. So in my ice lab for a while, just playing around, working out how to make candles. And then finally I created a range that it smelled lovely. It didn't explode, it burnt evenly, and I thought, okay, cool, I'm going to put some quotes on this.
What kind of quotes?
Some of the first quotes were like, I'm actually a mermaid. Fuck what they think, cute but psycho but cute. I wish I was a unicorn so I could stab idiots with my head. I mean, that's I thought that was hilarious, and I was like, let's just whack that on a candle and see if anyone has a similar kind of humor to me. And one that we're now quite well known for is my love is like a candle. If you forget me, I'll burn your fucking house down.
I love that. As someone else loved that too from memory.
Yeah, there were quite a few people that loved that, actually, starting with the Fat Jew. He posted that candle on his Instagram of, millions.
Hang on, how did he come across it?
Well, the thing about the quote candles is actually they worked so well because everyone wanted to repost them. They were such an Instagrammable product. Like there's beautiful candles, that smell lovely and, have a beautiful glassware or whatever. But when it has a strong message, it just seems to be a product that people want to Instagram more. And it also has our brand on the front. So that worked unintentionally as a really good marketing tool for us initially, because people would buy it or they'd receive it and they'd immediately want to Instagram it because they thought it was funny or they related to it or whatever it might be. So I think the image that the Fat Jew reposted was a customer image of the candle, which a lot of people posted that candle and literally went viral. And then a few days later, Madonna posted it, which was just mental.
Wow. So how did you... I can't put my words together. How did she find it? How did you find out about it? And what on earth does that do for your brand?
Okay, a lot of things. It was pretty epic. So the Fat Jewish posted it first, and then, I woke up and Instagram was just exploding, and I was like, why is there a bazillion messages and, notifications and so on? It had just been reposted, a million times, and then we had all these inquiries, where can I get this candle? Because at that point we weren't stocking internationally. It was just available in Australia. And, from distributors, from customers directly, everyone was just crazy about getting their hands on this candle. And then I think a few days later, Madonna reposted that same image, and then that just was a whole nother level. Yeah, we were very busy for that period of time, just trying to make as many of that candle as possible and working out how to quickly get it to the US.
Were you just selling through your own website at this stage? Is this where all the business was coming through?
No, we were wholesaling to all of our wholesale stockists who had purchased the jewellery, and it was just an easy transition for them to purchase the candles because they had the brand in store. So we were stocking quite a few wholesalers and the online store, but we weren't shipping internationally at that point. And shipping candles internationally is, not the easiest thing. They're heavy and they're fragile. So, yeah, there was a lot that we had to kind of work out in regards to logistics. Firstly, being able to produce a large volume of that style in such short notice, and then ship it to the US and find a 3PL that we could store the products with and then be able to ship from there. Because shipping from Australia to the US direct, it costs about $70 to send one candle, or depending on where you are in the US, but it's just not workable. We had to work out a lot of things very quickly to be able to capitalize on that moment, because it's a brief period of time and people aren't going to wait 6 months for a candle they saw. They want it now, or they want it at least in a few weeks. So that was quite a crazy time.
Everyone wants to make the most of technology these days, right? When it's used efficiently and effectively, it can seriously get your business ahead of your competitors. And GoDaddy can help you do this and stand out too. With GoDaddy, you can set your tech up to look professional and make your life easier with a full suite of Microsoft 365 products at your fingertips. With Microsoft 365, you can get an email that'll match your fancy new domain, so your customers can trust and have confidence in your brand. Plus, their Microsoft 365 will help you work anywhere, smarter and faster. Each plan prioritises what's right for your business, whether that's Word, Teams, Excel, Outlook, OneNote, security and storage. They'll give you all the products you need to run your business smarter on any device at any time. GoDaddy empowers customers to grow their business online. Go to godaddy.com.au to find out more.
So this is blown up. Did that kind of trajectory continue, or did it then kind of, slow down from there after that Madonna post? How did you decide to keep making the business going forward? Was it about making new funny quotes? How did you kind of keep going with that?
We use the same sort of authentic base. The quotes always really had to resonate, firstly, with myself and the brand. So we're not just plastering random quotes on candles, regardless of what it is. It really has to be on brand and it really has to be authentic and to make sense and feel right. But you have to keep changing each season. And at that point, we were releasing a few collections a year, little capsules that relate to, different events, different things happening in the media. There's always new things popping up that people are finding humorous, or, things that are happening in the world. And we try and always link it in to what's going on in the outside world, not just what's going on in my head or, what I personally think is funny. So it's balancing all those elements, as well as the design elements are also very important. It's not just the quote on the candle. And I think that's why they worked so well, because every single element is designed from scratch, from the packaging to the base label to the Pantone color of the wax to the fragrance, everything. So not only does it have a quote that people are resonating with or find hilarious, or it's a good quality product, and that combination worked really well for us. Going back to the gap in the market, that was a gap that I saw. Like any sort of quote type candles on the market at that point in time were really kind of cheap, kind of gaggy type things, like a crap kind of strawberries and cream candle with a funny quote on it. So I really wanted to merge the two of a high quality product with a humorous, not always humorous, but sometimes humorous quote on the front. But yeah, look, it's back to your original question. It's essential. You've got to keep evolving. You've got to keep changing every season. But then also what I learned was it's important to keep a line of your core available always. So I got into the headspace of need to move, need to keep going, need to keep changing. And we took out quite a few of our key quotes and replaced them with new ones. And we found that a lot of our stockists and customers were like, oh, where's that, quote about burn your house down, or the mermaid, or whatever it is. It's my favorite quote. I burn it all the time. So we just ensured that we had a balance of that, injecting newness, but also keeping our core quotes available that we're known for all the time.
What are some of the quotes you've done? What have been your popular ones? What have been the ones that have, haven't resonated? How have you kind of found that niche and that sweet spot?
Well, one thing we've found is that staying authentic to the brand and our messaging is important. When we veer too far away from that, it tends not to work. So we've really kind of landed in a good place with who our customer is and what resonates with them. And we really have to just stay true to that and not, jump too far this way or the other. And also the range tends to be a reflection of where I'm at that point in time, as well as balancing it with what's happening in the outside world and what our customers are asking for and what is and isn't working. It tends to start from that point.
How do you take a business that is, predominantly quote candles, how much do they retail for?
They vary. They start at about $39.95 and they go up to about $59.
How do you make that business profitable? Because they're not massive margins. They're not talking huge dollar amounts, obviously, per candle. How did you make that profitable, and how long did it take you to be able to start paying yourself, I guess?
Well, the strategy with the candles was volume. The margin isn't huge, but we felt that we could really sell quite a large volume of this product, as opposed to jewelry, for example, that's a higher price point, there's a bigger margin, but we found that we, didn't sell as much jewelry. Like candles is a consumable product. You burn it, it runs out, you need another one. So you're far more likely to purchase more candles through the year than you would a special piece of jewelry. So that was always the strategy, to sell high volume, to get into, large retailers, to export internationally. That was a strategy to make the business profitable and to in turn pay myself. I mean, look, I've kind of gone up and down and off and on with paying myself. In the first few years I didn't, and then I started putting myself on a wage, and then it's, depending on where the business is at. Now it's, obviously more stable, and it's important that if the business can't pay a wage to myself, then something's not working. But I'd always put the business before me. I'm like, okay, well, we need to invest in more stock, or we need to employ another person. I'll just live off my savings or whatever it might be. Let's just get it to the next level. But I'm older now and I have a family, and I can't really work like that. So
what do you think is next for Damselfly? What do you hope to be next? Is there kind of an end goal or just a 2021 goal?
I mean, at the moment, we're taking each year as it comes due to COVID. I mean, it's really hard to plan too far at the moment, particularly with production. And we've had a lot of surprises in the last year, and we've had to think outside the box and do things differently. But in terms of what we're planning in the year to come, we're looking at releasing a lot of new product, which is exciting because last year COVID put a stop to a lot of our product launches. So we had to kind of look locally to produce, smaller capsules, and a lot of our bigger launches were put on hold, which are now due to launch this year. We're expanding the body collection, as that went really well last year. So looking at doing some more body products, which I'm very excited about. Expanding the stationery range, and there's a few exciting collaborations that we're working on. And I've actually been recently thinking about potentially getting back into maybe a small capsule of jewellery. I say that every year and I sort of don't get around to it, but I think that might be on the cards, or at least starting to work on the collection. It may not launch this year. But yeah, most importantly this year I'm focusing on design and marketing with the new structure that we've set up. So yeah, that's basically the plan for the year, and we'll see what happens with lockdowns and the rest of the world. But hopefully it rolls out like that.
Oh, Christiana, it's been so amazing hearing from you. It's such a chameleon business, and it's so incredible to hear how you've been able to essentially have the one business name but have so many iterations of that and still go so strong and successful in what's still a small business in terms of the size of people in that. So thank you so much for your time. Now, before we finish though, I've got 5 quick questions that I like to ask every interviewee the same. The first one's probably the easiest one, I think. What's the one piece of technology or the one app that you couldn't live without in your business?
Well, look, I'm going to say 3 because I can't really stick on one. I'd say Shopify, Trello, and Planoly. They're the 3 that I use the most. Shopify, obviously, runs our website, our online store. Trello is basically a way to pull together the team, and I'm a list crazy kind of person. I, have a list for the day, for the week, for the month. I'm all about lists, and it sort of breaks down each day and your plans with the team and each project and so on. And Planoly is a way to organize our social media and Instagram stories and tiles and sort of map that all out. So they're probably the 3 key ones. There's quite a few, but that'd be the top.
Great. Number 2 is, what do you wish someone had told you in the early days, a piece of advice that would have saved you a lot of time or heartache potentially?
I was given a lot of great advice actually early on, and my issue was that I didn't take the advice. I was very headstrong and invincible and thought I was invincible. So the advice I wish someone had told me was to take me by the shoulders and shake me and say, Christiana, listen to the advice from the experts. Listen to the advice. That's something I wish had have sort of sunk in early on.
And what about if you could turn back time? Is there anything you'd change, or is there one thing you would do differently now you've got the 2020 vision of hindsight?
Yeah, I'd say you've always got to have your eye over the financials. Regardless of whether you like it or not, or whether it's something that you're great at, you need to understand what's going on in your business. And this is a non-negotiable for success. If you're going to run a business, you need to understand the workings of that business, and you need to be involved in the meetings with your accountants and bookkeepers and understand how to, read a P&L. And that would be something that I would sort of advise myself to do, to not take myself too far out of that and just say, oh, yep, I'll leave it up to the bookkeeper or my business partner or whatever. Yeah, so now I've really got my head in that at all times, even though I find it a bit, draining and tedious and it's not what I love doing. That's something that I'd probably turn back and say, Christiana, pull your head out of whatever you're looking at and pull it into that bloody Excel spreadsheet.
What are you the most proud of?
I'd say that I'm still here, that Damselfly is still a brand and that we've evolved and made it through, major highs and lows. Yeah.
It's something to be pretty bloody proud of, I reckon. And lastly, what's the biggest misconception, do you think, that people have of you or they have of Damselfly?
A lot of people assume that I'm an extrovert and that I'm very outgoing. I think because of the brand and the messaging and the vibe of Damselfly, people think that that's me. In reality, I'm quite an introvert and I recharge when I'm alone. I have my moments, but generally, I'm a pretty sort of introverted person. So that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions about me. Damselfly, I guess a lot of people assume that it's a massive company when it's still, a small business. I think because we stock our range in large department stores and a lot of people know the brand. Yeah.
Well, pat on the back for that because you are certainly doing well. It's a household name and I'm sure everybody's seen some of these quote candles, even if they don't follow Madonna. So thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us today. It's been so wonderful hearing from you and hearing this lady startup story. Some of the people we hear from have started in the last year or so, others as you are nearly 20 years ago. So thank you for sharing your story and your knowledge with all of us here in the lady startup world.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Now a word from Mia.
Hey, it's Mia Friedman here. I'm the founder of Lady Startup, and each week I'll be bringing you a Lady Startup lesson that was inspired by the incredible women that are featured on each episode. This week when I listened to George's chat with Christiana, the thing that really struck me was the really enormous hurdles that Christiana had to overcome to get where she is now. And I think that sometimes, well, I know actually always, there are these hurdles that will come up again and again when you're in business and when you're a lady startup. And the difference between the lady startups that continue and grow and thrive and the ones that stumble and fall over and sometimes close or fail are that you're not prepared to overcome that hurdle. And sometimes we don't have the skills that it takes to get over that actual hurdle because you've never experienced that problem before. Sometimes you've got to level up your skills and upskill to get over the hurdle. So, this idea that everybody else knows how to do anything is just not true. No one knows what they're doing. We're all just Googling everything. That's what Google's for. It's our friend. You can't just give up when you get to one of those hurdles. You've got to keep going if you want your business to continue. Keep learning and always be upskilling. So for Christiana, she had no idea about wholesaling or finding a stockist, but she didn't let that stop her. She didn't stop at that hurdle and go, oh, well, I better give up now. She gave it a red hot go and she started cold calling and she gathered the information that she needed to get over that hurdle and keep going with her business. I'm not saying that you need to be an expert in everything because you can't be and you won't be, but you've got to have that willingness to problem solve. So I hope Christiana's story will inspire you to give your lady startup dreams a red hot go and keep going. Now, back to Georgia.
Thanks for listening to Lady Startup Stories. To find out more about the Lady Startup courses, head to www.ladystartup.com/pages/home. I'm Georgia Love. You can find out more about my Lady Startup at @LoveGeorgiaElliott on Instagram. Lady Startup Stories is produced by Michaela Floriano. The executive producer of Lady Startup Stories is Eliza Ratliff. We'll see you on mamamia.com.au.
This episode of Lady Startup was brought to you by GoDaddy, the place to go to get your business idea online.
Mamma Mia acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this podcast on, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures.